Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to let you know we're going to wait for a wee bit. Apparently there's an event which is just dovetailing a little bit, so we're just going to relax for 5 minutes. That will allow some more people to come in and obviously hear what Branford's got to say. So you can just be patient for 5 minutes before you can all do that. So how does the microphone, is it European signal, is it working? Is it okay? Well, I'd like you to, during the course of the morning, if we're talking about microphones, just give us feedback. You know.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than white noise. I've been to lots of people, it's just white noise.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been some really heavy gigs where it's just like sheet metal. This is actually a comedy hour, and I'm not Phil Crosby. Okay, I think you've got that. I'm not Phil Crosby.
If you guys have questions during the course of this, please just chime in. Because it's more fun for me when it's a conversation with you guys than me just chundering on. Because I can chunder, trust me. I woke up at 4:45 this morning to go try to play golf. And they gave me some time at 7:30, which meant that I would have been late for this, so I slunk away. There's a course here, the old courses. Of course, everybody wants to play. I didn't get a chance this time, thanks to Jim. So, guess I'll have to come back.
Can I reply to that?
You may.
It's not man, it's Adolf Sax's fault, not mine. Don't lay it on me.
You call that around Adolf.
Don't lay it on me.
Let me go look that up, man. Look it up.
You know, you'd have caused much less trouble if you just persevered. He would have caused, I'm going to try and talk over you, he'd have caused much less trouble. Is it?
See, you thought it was me, it's not. I'm taking it, you know what I did.
If Adolf Sax had just persevered with making a bass clarinet, life would be much calmer. It's all you sax guys that raise the pitch, that's all.
Okay.
We've got some more people coming, so hopefully they will send us shortly.
It is a nice carpet to follow. And I know we brought it along. And I know we were waiting, yeah, just put it on the cups down.
I'll try again with the microphone, ladies and gentlemen. In 2004, let's make a start. 2004, I can't believe it's 8 years ago, I played one of the clarinet team in Manchester at the Halley Orchestra. Those of you that follow that sort of stuff realise it's a very old symphony orchestra, 150 years in Manchester. So it's a great gig. I'm really proud to be part of an institution like that. And one day I was looking at the schedule for upcoming events in 2004, and amazingly, I noticed there were 2 items in the programme which I just didn't see coming. One was the Debussy Rhapsody, and the other was Darius Milhaud's Creation of the World. And when I realised who the international performer was, it just knocked my breath away. Because not only is it very rare to have saxophone concertos as part of a symphony orchestra program, to have a soloist of the stature of the gentleman that sat here was just so exciting. So can we welcome Mr. Branford Marsalis? Now, the irony with this interview, anyone in this room could interview Branford because we're all so familiar with his work. And that's one of the great things about getting involved with the music business. One of the thrills, if you're a player, is playing with other musicians, and as a spectator, I remember as a kid, some of the first gigs I went to, my dad was into big bands, so he took me to hear Harry James, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Lionel Hampton, Stan Kenton, so all that great information that was coming over from the States. And as a young player, it's just complete inspiration. That combined with the opportunity to play classical music as a clarinetist was just the best opportunity in the world. So you're just getting in the whole world of music. Then to meet someone like Branford, who is a groundbreaker, because he is challenging all the perceptions of what should happen as a classical artist or a jazz artist. I hesitate to use the word crossover because that's a cheap summarization of what we do in music. But it's great to have you here. And going back to the gig in Manchester when you played the Debussy and the creation of the world, the Darius Milhaud. What was interesting about that, you actually met the composer of the concerto that you played on Tuesday night. And it was a great opportunity. And it's amazing how these events happen. That was just Andy Scott's a colleague of mine, a working musician in Manchester. And we had the opportunity to meet Brandon. So from that meeting 8 years ago, now you're performing his concerto on Tuesday night. So how does that feel?
Feels fun. I mean, it's not something you expect from a meeting for it to occur. And I'm old enough to know that it's kind of
the way things work.
The way life works, and the joy of life that you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what events will occur from chance meetings, associations, friendships.
I don't know if Branford remembers the sequence of events, but I was really quite devious because we were playing a gig in Derby, which, as anyone, if there's anyone from England here, knows that's probably a hall that's more suited to international snooker than it is as a concert venue. Anyway, the orchestra played there. It's one of the concert venues in, I apologise to anyone from Derby here. So we were driving back to Manchester because Branford was staying at the Midland Hotel in Manchester, and I had noticed that his tenor was in the boot of the car. Now, he wasn't playing tenor on the gig, he was playing soprano and alto in the two pieces that we just discussed. Now, he didn't know, am I distorting?
Yeah.
Brand didn't know that Andy, we're talking about Andy Scott, the composer, had said to me, what's the chance of on your way back to Manchester, Branford coming and playing in the jazz club where I run the quintet? And I said, well, it's a slim chance because he'll be really tired, he'll want to just get back to Manchester. And on the way back, I schmoozed Brand all the way. And we had to make a turn off because he was absolutely shattered, wanted to get back. But Andy had just texted me to say the club was full of people. So amazingly, Brand didn't resist. We got to a turn off, but we had to either continue to Manchester or turn off to Winsford in Cheshire. And we ended up doing this turn off. We turned up at the venue, which was jam full. And the band were playing the Chicken, Pee Wee Ellis Chicken, which you all know, all you Jacko fans out there. Brand got his tenor out, walked straight on the platform, there's no introductions, because the band was still playing, and played for an hour. And I think...
Y'all know Pee Wee Ellis Chicken, right?
Yeah.
You do, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I thought you would say what? Okay. Yeah.
I won't sing it, I'll get Brand to sing it, he's singing it. So I think it just... Okay, it's a cute story, but it's a real story.
All right, we're talking now.
It happened.
Good job. I said 3 words in 12 minutes.
The best bit of this gig, guys, I've just done my introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, Branford Marsalis.
I'm not trying to mess with Jim because I just don't find any of it really groundbreaking at all. I mean, it's flattering for you to say that. Trying to be a good musician, I had opportunities and I took advantage of the opportunities, and there's a lot of bad playing in that process, and whatever it is, as far back as when I first started playing saxophone when I was 15. I couldn't remember all the moments when I was just standing on stage not knowing what I was doing and just embracing the maturation process. And I think that if I had any advantage over many of my friends and my colleagues who play that I know of, it's just that I'm not afraid to sound like crap in front of a whole bunch of people. Because I'm looking that way, and too many times a lot of my colleagues tend to look right here, and the fear becomes the operating thought. You know, what if some people out there hear me play bad? What if I get a bad review? What if I get a bad mark on my what do you call those things? Exams. We didn't get a bad mark on my exams. I got horrible marks on my exams. But I was sitting there saying, well, if I learn how to play, then what I got on my exams won't really matter. So so when we were talking about that gig in Manchester, I was terrible on that concert. I remember the concertmaster he would look at me and go, because it was horrible. There's a thing in the piece where the music goes from 6/8 to slow 3/4 to really crawling slow 3/4. And there's a part where the semi-quaver switch is not just couldn't hear that thing to save my life. And I just didn't know how to negotiate with that. But I didn't know, why is this guy here? So I do remember that. You know, I remember the gig. And I remember playing with Andy's. When you said it was a jazz club, it was a funk gig, which is cool with me. That's what I did mostly when I grew up. So
I don't know if I remember correctly, but you said before you went to Berkeley, where you studied, that you were just a rhythm and blues guy, that you weren't really doing giant steps and all the heavy stuff.
Well, I wasn't even doing that at Berkeley, really. I went to Berkeley to become more of an R&B producer kind of person, and I heard my brother Winston playing with this great jazz drummer, Art Blakey. And I don't know, just something about that concert, it triggered something. And I remember when I called Wynton and my dad separately, because Wynton was living in New York at the time. And I said, man, I think I'm going to start playing jazz. And they both laughed on the phone because I just completely ignored it most of my teenage years.
So was Winston in the band, then you joined later in Art Blakey's jazz?
Yeah, Wynton was in the band first. He was in the band, and he joined the band in 1979, and I joined the band in 1981.
So is this with Bobby Watson and those guys?
Yeah.
Because I remember...
I took Bobby Watson's place.
Right.
So it was Bill Pierce on tenor, Donald Brown, and James Williams on piano, Blakey, of course, on drums, Charles Stamper on bass, Wynton on trumpet.
But that was probably the best jazz degree in the world. Well, it has been for the last, when Art was operating, because all the guys that went through that band, they were the best of the best.
Playing in any situation is the best degree. If you're going to get it, it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. It's about playing it. It's about playing it. And depending on the music, I think with all music, it's the same thing. It takes a while because you have to develop a cultural understanding of what it is you're trying to do. That's the hardest part to get. The rest of it is just work and patience. Playing to play for James Brown tune. It's such a huge difference. I never got off an R&B gig or a jazz gig and said, oh, my brain hurts, I think I'm going to go sleep for 3 days. So the process of playing classical music is very, very different. But at the end of the day, there are tons of jazz saxophonists who practice that way all the time that would not fare well playing classical music because they won't take the time to try to understand the music through, from a vantage point of cultural authenticity.
Because oftentimes we're encouraged in an orchestral situation just to be a vehicle for music, not to be a personality. Sometimes your personality's got to be rather anonymous. You find that, not as a soloist, but certainly if you're sitting within the ranks of an orchestra, you're fulfilling a role.
Well, I'm more comfortable playing with groups than I am as a soloist. It's not my nature. In my nature, I'm not a soloist. I don't really like it very much because I think music is a group endeavor. And anytime, it's one of those odd things when you play non-classical music. To lay people, any group you are in is perceived as, because of entertainment, the person who is in front, it is their band, and everyone else is the backing band. And I sometimes hear groups where that's kind of what it is, but they don't sound very well. You know, a lot of jazz groups, they start and stop at the same time. It's not really a quartet or a quintet. It's 5 guys on the stage. And they start and they stop at the same time, and they all know the songs. So they play within a harmonic structure, but they don't play together. But I think that the most exciting thing for me is to play. To play music with a group, like for instance with the Debussy piece you were talking about. As I started playing, I just said, this isn't really a solo piece because you play for 30 seconds, then you stand for 5 minutes, then you play for a minute, and then you stand. So I didn't want to play it in an orchestra. I was trying to work with really wanted to play it. And I said, I got a great idea. If I can sit in the group, then I'll play the piece. And they said, well, no, it's a solo piece. I said, it's really not. I don't want to play it.
So they were more within the body of the strings, then you can enjoy that sound?
No, I just sat in the woodwind section. I just sat in the woodwind section in the middle. And the piece actually sounds better that way, and it makes more sense. So, and every time I've only done it 3 times now. And every time the conductor says, are you sure about this? He says, it's really highly unusual. And after the first rehearsal, he says, oh, it sounds so great in there. This is a great idea. Yeah, it is, I guess. You know, I thought about this. So I enjoy playing with groups more than I like standing out in front. And even when I'm playing with a group, I spend a lot of my time listening to what the band or the orchestra is doing, or the pianist is doing. It's absolutely, in my case, it's a collaboration. It's always a collaborative effort. It's not me. But I just did my first recital last Sunday. I was at 51 years old. First recital.
Piano and saxophone.
Piano and saxophone. And the pianist was really caught off guard by my method just because there are times when, even in these pieces where the accompanist says the melody or has the leading line of this, and we would talk about the music, and he said, well, he's an accompanist by trade. He said, I'm not used to having a situation where my opinion matters. And I said, well, I'm sorry you've been in that situation, but here you have to step it up, son. I'm not trying to speak everything by myself. So we had a great time.
Well, you know, there's a famous book by Jim Muirhead, the great accompanist that we know in the UK. And the title of the book was Am I Too Loud? Mm-hmm. So there's a culture of Am I Too Loud?
Yeah, well for me, no. You're not.
Not loud enough.
Not loud enough. So it's all been an experience. It's all been an experience. I mean, just hearing great musicians play. You know, Arnold and Nils are here, and they're 2 fantastic saxophone players. I mean, to me, astounding saxophone players. And to hear them is just it's inspiring to me. It's not, I guess, when I was in high school, I played gridiron. I played and got pushed around and beat up by a lot of guys. So to me, music is not a contest. It can never really be a contest. Boston, and I realized, man, these guys are competitive in music. It's like, I don't even, you know, it took me about 6 weeks to figure out what was going on because I just didn't understand the body language and the language, and I realized, oh, it was a competition in them. They're going to practice more than me, and they're going to be better than me. I'm like, there's always somebody out there that can kick your ass. Always. Always someone, somewhere. So, competition.
You sound to me like you're competitive with yourself.
That's what this game is. I know when I play well, and I know when I make mistakes. And I don't need a critic to tell me, I don't need anybody. I know when it's lousy. And I just have to get back to work. Back to work, that's all it is. You know, man, this is great. Yeah, I played well. Now back to work. Back to work. Let's keep doing it.
Well, that's the thing I remember when Brandford Marsalis, that was the parting thing you said. You're going home to practice.
Man, I was so behind the 8 ball back then. I mean, I was older when I started doing this, you know, so I remember how bad it was, how bad I was, and I was taking lessons, and I was doing things that you should have done. I should have done when I was 17, and I was 42. It was pretty cool, that. When, in hindsight, when it was happening, I wasn't happy.
Yes, sir. When did you decide to start playing classical and why?
First of all, you were amazing the other day. Thank you. I missed this morning. I'm sorry, but you got to hear this kid. It's some of the most incredible saxophone playing I've ever heard. But I listen. And I started. I played pieces kind of, but never seriously. I learned the Glasgow when I was 18 for school. But of course, like most kids in my area, I never listened. I bought one record. It was Eugene Rousseau record on Deutsche Grammophon, and I had that, and I had nothing else. And I didn't listen to classical music. As far as when I was a kid, I listened to Beethoven's Fifth, Mahler's Third, because Wynton brought it home because he had to learn it. He was auditioning for Juilliard, and he brought this orchestral excerpts book by Calmus, and he bought this Mahler Third record, which I fell in love with, so I stole it when I went to college. And that was about it, and made good concerto for orchestra. But it was just part of kind of adding it into a repertoire. I didn't listen to it with the kind of specificity that I needed to take it seriously. So I was about 40 years old, and I had an opportunity to play with the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra out of New York. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. That's what I said about everything. Sure, I'll do it. So I started playing the Bear, and it took me about 20 minutes to realize, oh, I'm in trouble. It's just things you don't notice about your playing.
Yeah.
Because all music is highly personalized, and it's highly stylized. But jazz music and popular music, the vast majority of it is about, it's kind of like it's highly personalized. So everything you do becomes a part of your personality because there are no rules. And there's good things about that and there's bad things about that. You know, the bad thing is like, that's how a guy like Kenji becomes considered a jazz musician, because there are no rules. You know, the good thing about it, it's just what it is. I'm not really dogging Kenji, I like the guy. But, you know, the good thing about it is it allows a guy like Ornette Coleman, who on the face of it is a horrible saxophone player, but is an incredible jazz musician and has great ideas. I mean, the latitude is great and there's good and bad to it. But when you start playing a piece and you realize, first of all, you can't play it in tempo, your eighth notes are completely uneven. You subtone everything past low E. You can't come and say, I'm dead. I said yes to this shit and I'm in trouble. So I called my father, I said, I think I gotta back out of this. And my father says, I think you should stick with it. You need the discipline, number one. It's really clear you need it. Number two, you never know what doors it might open. So yeah, you're gonna sound bad on this record, but it doesn't mean you sound bad for the rest of your life. He says, if I were you, you're not getting any younger. So opportunities don't come around every time. Nobody's clamoring to hear you play anything, so you never know what it might lead to. And I did this tour with them, weeks into it, and I just said, this is the first time that I've ever played music, and I had no answers for it. I had nothing for it. And Harvey Patel came to the performance in Austin, Texas. And I said, Harvey, it's really bad. He goes, yeah, I know it kind of really is. And I said, well, yeah, I don't have know what to do. He says, well, you need to just come down here and study. And I said, I'll see you next summer. And I set it up in my schedule, and I went to Austin. And we did 6 hours a day for 6 days. And by the end of that, then I wound up sleeping for 2 days after that. But when I woke up, I was just completely inspired because I just had this monstrous database full of stuff that I had to do. It was catch up. It was all catch up because everybody else, you knew how to do that, when you were 16, 17 years old. And I had to just do everything. Tone, technique, metronome, furling, just get to work. And I've been running up that hill ever since, and I haven't gotten to the plateau yet. That's the great thing about it. So the great thing about it now is that I remember when I would first start playing a piece, it's kind of like watching a children's recital. When a child plays a recital, they practice in a very rudimentary way. So they kind of memorize the piece. So if they make a mistake in the middle of it, they have to go back to the beginning to play it. But in this case, I couldn't go back to the beginning. I just had to just keep rolling down the hill as the snowball got bigger and bigger. And there was so much noise in my head. So whenever I make a mistake, then I start hearing, you suck, you can't play, see, and it was on stage, I would just be completely out of it. And it took about 6 or 7 years before I could go on stage and make a mistake and go, yeah, okay, and move on. I just couldn't do it. So that was invigorating for me. It wasn't invigorating in the middle of it. In the middle of it, you play the E bar, it gets to the high A, and then the orchestra plays, in that moment I'm going, you suck so bad. Why are you doing this to yourself? You're shaking, your legs, you're sweating. I still remember for years. Why am I doing this? This is so horrible. And then it stops. 6, 7 years into it. And I also had the disadvantage of only playing it 2 times a year. So it's another thing where it's very difficult when you're just doing it. Because there was one situation where I played with a band from Brazil, not a very good orchestra, which was fine because I wasn't a very good player, so it worked out. And we played 32 shows in 38 days. And by the 16th show, something switched, and I said, I'm not completely lousy anymore. Now I'm just kind of lousy. And it was great. And then I started realizing the importance of repetition, and then I started thinking, I got to start doing recitals and things just to play. And I've always tried to find opportunities to play. And because it makes a difference. Playing is something you have to do. You can't just do it in a practice room. It just doesn't work that way. So, but the answer, the short answer to my long answer is I was 42 years old. And I started getting work, and I'm 51 now.
And just because you wanted the challenge?
I needed the challenge. You get to a place when you play jazz or anything else where you just kind of hit a wall. You hit a wall, and then you either are comfortable with the fact that you now have this body of ideas that you're going to regurgitate for the rest of your life, and then people call that your personality. And then the one thing that I always avoided doing playing jazz was buying the Wscxvi thesaurus of scales, because every guy I heard that learned that stuff, they used it, and that became their musical statement. And I always tried to avoid learning those kinds. I learned 2, like the symmetric diminished scale and one other wacky scale that every time I play it, it reminds me, I sound like a long line of saxophone players. I said, I'm not going to play that stuff. I'm avoiding it. So then I was in this place where, God, do I have to start learning the dance on Nimsky and it sound like the robot guys, So this kind of opened a way where I could just address all the other weaknesses I had that other styles of music do not allow me to exploit. And that was the thing for me. Yeah, it kind of reinvigorated me about playing music because, I know a lot of guys, this is about, you turn 50 and guys just start saying, well, what time's the gig? they hang out on the golf course and they stop practicing. And they just show up for the gig and they play their stuff. And people say, man, that was incredible. It's like this cycle. I watched Dexter Gordon when he was 75. And it just becomes this thing. It's easy to be cynical after a while. Because you're playing this music that's really challenging. And you get absolutely no acknowledgement or appreciation for it, except from your peers. And then you see a guy who can barely play whole notes. And he sells 5 million records. And it's hard to not let that foolishness interfere with what your quest is. Because then you start saying, well, hell, you know, if he's just playing half notes, then I can play half notes too and do that. But you can't, because when guys when a guy that plays that style of music, they're usually very sincere. They are playing up to the best of their ability. And there's something about that sincerity that regular people relate to that. When you are actually physically pandering to appeal to an audience, I think they kind of subconsciously get that it's pandering. And it just doesn't work. So it's just, you get to a place where you have to accept, well, this is what my path is, and this is what I've chosen, and I have to accept everything that comes along with that. And that's one of the reasons I was able to walk away from a television show that paid me a tremendous amount of money, because I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to look back on my life and say, you know, I played clown music for 20 years, and now I'm living in a house, you know, and I'm a member of St. Andrews, and I have all this stuff. I'd rather just stand in line with the rest of you guys, you know, and try to sneak on once at 5 o'clock in the morning and just get back to practicing, because this is what validates me.
But the Tonight Show band?
Yeah.
I was just wondering in the audience, are there any classical players who, like me, who aspire to play jazz, and maybe I've got a question for Bran? Because it's okay, Bran, talking about the difficulty of coming from his side, you know, coming from my side of the world. One of Bran's colleagues in London, Julian Joseph, came to visit our orchestra, and I foolishly went to the front with this hardcore band playing, used to be a cha-cha by Jacob Pastorius. And when it came to the creative point where you have to compose, I realised I had no rudder, my paddles were broken, and I was in trouble. So is there anyone, you know, classical players who have tried to experience playing jazz, and Bran might field the question?
No, I think I covered.
I could slightly twist the question and ask a related, slightly different question. You said earlier that Winton joined Art Blakey in '79, and it was only after hearing him with Art Blakey that you started to get interested in jazz yourself.
Right.
And you joined Art Blakey in '81.
Right.
So within 2 years, you got yourself in a position to be taken on by Art Blakey.
Well,
what did you do in those 2 years?
I listened to a lot of jazz records, something that I'd never done. But to actually be honest and be fair about it, I was the best of a really crappy bunch of guys that were there. And for instance, had he been looking for a trumpet player in 1961, he would have certainly hired me. If he were looking for a saxophone player in '61, he most certainly would not have hired me. But fortunately for me, this era when all these great dominant personalities playing the instrument, it wasn't there, it was 1981. And they were just a lot of not good saxophone players there. Or a lot of really excellent saxophone players who were just lousy jazz musicians because they don't understand the language, they understand the harmony, and how what they play relates to the harmony. There's little things that make it sound like jazz, they didn't know how to do it. So, and on top of that, Art Blakey was really interested in keeping Winton in his band and not having him leave. So he figured that if he hired me, that Winton would stay in the band longer, which did work for an additional 8 months, because Winton was considering leaving. And once Winton left, I just left with him. But, so there were a lot of factors involved. I mean, it would be easy to say, yeah, you know, I really looked it up in 2 years, but I had a long way to go.
Brian, I was just wondering, you're talking about guys who just repeat language. Have there been any really inspirational saxophonists that you've worked in the jazz area that you refer to, or great memories, any guys that you particularly worked with that stick out over the years?
No. No, but I have Sonny Rollins records, and Chu Berry records, and Charlie Parker records, and Sidney Bechet records. Sidney Bechet was a guy who repeated a lot, because he was mostly, he grew up playing clarinet, and he was orchestrally trained. And he didn't really like jazz that much. He called his music ragtime music. And, but his sound, and his vibrato was a little weird, but his sound was incredible. And his style of music, I really appreciate how stylized his music was. That's where I get most of my information for jazz musicians, mostly from listening to recordings.
I don't know if you agree with me, but when you did that great DVD with your family, you play on Instrumentalist on Barbecue, you almost get into that Sidney Bechet sort of...
Well, that's what happens with me is when I hear music, I've listened to so much music that when I hear music, my brain goes to the place that you start playing in a style that fits what that music is.
But not many guys do that now. You seem to have a good way of...
Well, they don't want to do it. They like to say, I have this style. And whatever the style is, they try to impose that style into every musical situation. It's a good defense mechanism, because you don't have to sit up there and be exposed for being not good in a certain area. But it doesn't make any sense to me to not learn what the music is supposed to be. That's just my instinct. Just the idea of going to play in a band like Sting's band and playing Coltrane solos. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I can hear records where guys are doing that. It's just one of those things where when they start playing Striplets and Barbecue, yeah, I'm gonna. On one of my recordings, we did this piece by Henry Purcell, and I was playing the tenor, and as soon as the melody came in, the vibrato became this kind of almost classical vibrato. So I did an additional take with a note to self: don't use a classical vibrato. So the song.
I've heard you play that chart. You play very high in the tenor.
Yeah.
It's very elegant, beautiful melody.
And I said, don't do it. So we did the second take, and the second take started, and then I did the exact same thing, even while trying not to do it. And I just went, okay, this is what it's going to be. But this is what the way that I listen to music, I listen to so much of that era of music that it was impossible for me to shut off that learning curve and just make it become something else without it being forced. I'm in this place where whatever my brain says, that's what I accept. So yeah, it's a choice. It's a choice of a lot of musicians that I know, they want to get to a place where they don't have to listen to music anymore. I just happen to not agree with that. I don't think that place is ever coming for me. I'm always going to be listening.
One of the band leaders, if my information is right, that you may have chosen not to work with was Miles Davis. Although, did you play with him? I guess did the band, or did you just never play with Miles?
I played on the record. Miles was, I was going to play. And then he said, what do you think about Prince? And I said,
You didn't tell him, did you? You told him?
I didn't even, I like Prince, but that's not the point. I just said, well, I'm not doing that with you. He said, well, why don't you do it? You know what? What do you have against social music? I said, man, when you were my age, you were listening to Louis Armstrong. All right? When you were a kid, you were listening to Louis Armstrong. When I was a kid, I was listening to James Brown, Led Zeppelin, Aretha Franklin, I kind of am social music. So that ain't what this is about. This isn't about social music.
You didn't need a lecture on that sort of
What I just didn't need is to have a guy who was one of the greatest jazz trumpet players in history playing Prince tunes and me saying, yeah, I'm down with that. I wasn't down with it. And he was clear that's what he wanted to do, so we just said, okay, see you later. And so then when I started playing with Sting, he calls me and he curses me out. Well, you play with him, but you won't play with me. I said, this is what he does. If he said, I want to start a band and we're going to play So What? I wouldn't do it. This is what he does. This makes sense. You standing on stage with sunshades on and high heels playing Human Nature makes no sense to me. He knew exactly what I was talking about. He knew. So when he wrote his book, he was very nice to me in his book. He killed my brother, but he was nice to me.
I was just wondering on Tuesday night when Branford played the premiere of Andy Scott's concerto, did anyone notice, or perhaps you all did, that there was a lot of improvisation in that piece?
Was there really?
Was that you playing?
Did you notice?
Was that interesting or was it, did you think it was all in the composer's mix?
A deaf man would notice that, bro.
Gentleman
Yeah.
What do you think?
Hi. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll say it.
Yes, sir.
What do you think of that kind of composition? Classical piece with improvisation?
I'm not necessarily a fan of it, per se, but it does pose a challenge. Because I was talking to a couple of the orchestra members at the end of it. I said, we were really surprised that you didn't burst into flurries of 30-second notes, because that's their experience when they work with jazz musicians, is that they kind of use the piece as a vehicle to. And the piece, and Andy wrote that in the piece. There were a couple of, in the second movement, they were double fermatos, and I said, well, what's a double fermato for? And he said, oh, you know, it's, I said, well, I don't do that. I don't, hey, look at me. And so we're just gonna have a double fermato, and I'm just gonna hold the note. And I think the challenge in those situations is to find things that work within the context of what the orchestra is doing, as opposed to blocking out the existence of the orchestra and just using it as a bunch of chord changes to just play mindlessly.
Like your accompanist, I guess. Like, I'm not sure the opinion.
Yeah, well, it's musical that way. See, and this is the built-in problem with teaching a style of music, harmony first, is that it encourages that you become very proficient at playing on chord changes and not really paying attention to all of the people that are around you. And it's one of those things, a lot of jazz musicians play the melodies of songs quite horribly because they actually don't care about the melody. A lot of people that play jazz now, I met a kid not long ago who said, I came to one of your recording sessions when you were 8 and I decided I wanted to play jazz. I said, well, what was it? He goes, well, man, you get to solo. I wanted to solo. And that's the last part of it for me. I'm not really keen on soloing per se. But you have a lot of musicians who play jazz because they get to solo, and all the other aspects of the music are pushed aside for that. And the piece was kind of written with that, you know, there was a band that Michael Breck was in, it was called Steps Ahead, and the piece reminded me of like Steps Ahead with strings. And Michael was playing a whole bunch of saxophone. I just said, I'm just gonna play the tune. Whatever the tune is, that's what I'm gonna play. But yeah, I'm not really keen on the whole improvising in orchestral settings, because the bigger the orchestra is, the more difficult it is to really achieve true improvisation anyway. So then you have to winnow down what that process is and kind of plug it into whatever the program is. But I accept the challenge of doing it.
Have you wrote down improvised sections?
Then it's not improvised.
No, but
It's written.
it's a melody that you use.
Yeah, but that's what the melody was. You know, it's just, there's no real solution to that problem. There's no solution to that problem. I think that one of the solutions to the problem is just to play less notes. The fewer notes you play, and you allow the motion in the composition to kind of come to the fore, rather than just blasting it all the way with flurries of Coltrane-esque sounds cascading all over the place. You just have to read, and when we were in rehearsal, I was really mindful of that. Of what is the orchestra doing here? Because at one point, Andy said, it was very funny, he said, well, maybe you shouldn't play in the beginning of the solo in the second movement. Because in the end, he wanted people to hear what he had written. So that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to play this melody and I'm going to stand there and it's just going to be string parts going. That's not going to work. I said, don't worry about it. I'm just working it out. I said, I'll pick and choose spots. And I was talking to Andy and Clark, because the conductor Clark, he said, we're going to do this movement again. And I turned to Andy and I said, yeah, check this out. And I just played a whole note here, or a quarter note, and then you could get the orchestration. He said, yes, that's brilliant, that's great. And then Clark said, well, what were you telling Andy to check out? I said, don't worry about it. We got it covered. Yes, sir?
Since you're more interested in the tune than playing wild solos, is there a secret desire, maybe a next step, to compose?
No. Yes, there is, but it's going to require the same kind of work that I put in.
But you're only 51.
I know, but I'm going to have to stop playing though.
Yeah,
I've thought about it. I've really thought about it. I don't, because, you know, in my world, they call you a composer. I said, well, I'm not a composer. I write tunes.
yeah.
Tunes aren't compositions. It sounds better.
Yeah.
That's why guys are calling themselves composers. Well, I'm a composer. I don't know. I write tunes. I'm a tune writer. I'm a tunesmith, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah, but if you want to call it that, then
the amount of work that I would have to put in to do it the way that I hear it in my head means that I would have to quit playing for at least 10 years. And at my age, if you quit playing for 10 years, then you're done. You're done playing. Because I would be forced to give it the same level of seriousness. I mean, a small chamber piece, perhaps, maybe I could do that, but I'm hearing such large sound in my head. And I mean, orchestration is hard. It's hard. It's easy to learn from a book. Man, books. And I read the books and say, this is stupid. These books are dumb. My brother Delphio told me, hey, this book is incredible. I'm looking at the book and I said, man, this doesn't make any sense because I know that when I listen to these compositions, this is not what these composers were thinking. They were hearing what they were writing. They heard it. These books do not teach you how to do that. They teach you devices. You know? Oh yeah, when you want to get this sound, use this, put the muted trumpet over there, and do this. But that's not what it is. It's music by numbers, which I've always tried to avoid. So the thought comes up, you know, from time to time it comes up in my head, but the conclusion is always the same.
I'll ask the same question 10 years from now.
I might be done by then. So then, yeah, I'm in school and I'm starting with very small works, with chamber works, because the way I would do it is I would do it the same way that I learned how to play jazz. I would pick a small piece, a chamber piece, a string quartet, and I would put it on and I would write what I hear. And then I would buy the score, and then I'd look at the score and find out all the places where I went wrong. Because what I've been doing is training my mind to get used to hearing sound in that sequence, the way that I hear sound in the sequence in jazz.
You transcribe it?
Well, yeah, always.
You would transcribe the struggles?
That's what I do. I transcribe it now. I'm always transcribing. And even when I listen to a symphonic work, for instance, I listen to it for about a year. I don't jump all over the place. When I find one that I think, well, this is going to be a life-changing experience, I park. And I listen, and I listen, and I listen. And I actually can hear the structure of the pieces when I'm done. I can hear the structure of the piece. I can't write it down. Because that's where the work comes in. The challenge is to get what's in your head onto the page. The way it's taught is to get it on the page. They teach us how to get it on the page, but they don't teach us how to hear it. Which is why, when I was at Berklee College of Music, I wrote this piece of music for a big band. Taking big band classes. And there were all these rules they called the Berklee rules. It must be this, it must be this, it must be this. So I wrote the piece. I thought it was a pretty good piece. And my teacher, P. Gordon, said, oh, this is actually a really good piece. However, it does not adhere to the Berklee rules. So I'm going to give you a weekend to rewrite this piece and make sure that it lines up. So the next piece I wrote, it was garbage. The melodic line was trash, but it adhered to the Berklee rules. So I called the piece Shift with an asterisk over the F, and at the bottom it says, asterisk denotes ghost letter. And then, and he said, oh, that's very cute, but it does fit the rules, so now I can give you a good grade. That's the problem. That's the problem. We keep talking about innovation and groundbreaking, but then they say, well, you can't write this. That's the same thing they said to Beethoven. You can't write this. There's all these conflicting messages going on. So I just I know I'm right about this, and I'm just going to ignore them. If I get a C, I get a C. Whatever. Because I'm not here to get good grades from Berklee College of Music. I'm here to become a good musician. And my brain tells me that this is the way to learn this music. So this is what I'm doing. It's worked so far. Yes, sir.
Delighted you use the word innovation then, and what's been brilliant about watching your career is there's all the jazz, there's the really great jazz, there's the really great rock and pop and funk, and there's the classical. If we were just going to go just into the future and imagine you were going to ditch your sax and become a composer, and we have that jazz classical continuum, where would your music be on that spectrum?
No idea. That's the great thing about it. Whatever comes out is what comes out.
And how would you use the word jazz in whatever you came out with? Would you?
I wouldn't bother worrying about the label, because to me, all music has a sound, and the sound is what it is. You can call it whatever you want. I mean, if you ever listen to Egyptian music, Egyptian instrumental music with mizmars, it sounds like Egyptian music. Period. We can call it whatever we want to call it, but I've listened to a lot of music from different places. I've listened to Hungarian folk music, and it sounds uniquely Hungarian. So there is something to the influence that a culture has on sound. There is something to the fact that Italian music sounds uniquely Italian, even when they start borrowing from German, and German music sounds German. So that's kind of how I approach all the music, and I've learned a lot of music that way, but when I'm writing, I'm just going to let it be what it's going to be. I'm not going to try to categorize it. Now, maybe when it's over, I'll be able to say definitively it's this or it's that, but I just wrote a piece for a duo record that I did, and it sounds completely classic. And then I started saying, well, where did I steal this from? Because I know I stole it. And I kind of narrowed down that I stole it from elements from the Prokofiev opera, The Gambler, from a Schumann piece, Dictaliga, and one chord from the Valkyrie. One chord. And I heard the chord in my head, and when I wrote it down, I said, man, I know I was listening to the whole, I was skipping through the Valkyrie trying to find the chord, and I couldn't, and one day I just put the whole thing on, and then the chord shows up. 27 minutes in, and I go, damn, that's the chord. It's an oboe transition. So that's just kind of how my brain works. If I had to listen to that music, I wouldn't have wrote the piece in that way. But once I start writing, whatever's in there, it ties all those disparate elements together. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question. You were talking when you were first starting to play classical, and you had the things going through your head about, well, this sounds lousy. I'm curious what goes through your brain or your heart or your soul when you're playing music that you do feel comfortable or if you are in your element.
Nothing. It just happens. It's just, because I'm paying attention to what everyone else is doing, because that's where I'm getting my ideas from. So, or sometimes it'll be one of those things where I look out and say, wow, that's a nice necklace. It gets there. It gets there. And I'm actually, in playing symphonic music now, I'm getting to the place where my brain can
stay in the moment.
It stays in the moment, and then I have to talk to it and say, all right, you need to stop worrying about where you're going to play golf tomorrow and get back to it. Get back to it. Because now that the brain's not, my brain was freaked for a long time. It was just freaked out. And now that it's not, it's getting too normal. Because I'm constantly, I have stuff bouncing inside my head like atoms bouncing around, like, neutrons bouncing around in an atom. And I kind of have to marshal that stuff in, but because the pieces I played here, I basically got them 3 weeks ago. There was no wandering. Because that was that great feeling again, like I'm standing on this tightrope and it could all just come falling down any second. And I kind of like that feeling. There's a rush to that. But I would have appreciated a little more time from my composer friends with those pieces. Particularly that salad piece. That piece was difficult. So yeah, it's not as bad as it used to be.
We're getting towards the end. The gentleman there, would you like to pose a question? Were you waiting, sir?
Yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Can we join you in a minute after this gentleman?
So you were talking earlier about collaboration is where it's at for you, and I was wondering if you could talk about your quartet, and when you're getting ready to make a new album and go on a tour with them, how does that work when it's the Brandford Marsalis quartet? And then do you invite them to bring in tunes, or?
Yeah, everybody brings in songs. Doesn't mean we'll play them. I pick the best tunes. I pick the best ones. shitty songs? It's like that's the solution. Do you really believe that you cannot study? You should not listen to other people's songs and figure out why they're good. You should just write a song a day. And it's kind of like the way photographers do photo sessions. If you're doing an album cover, why is an album cover photo session 6 hours long for one shot? The law of averages. One of these is bound to be good. You would just keep shooting until I feel secure. And I think a lot of guys, that's how they write.
How do the rehearsals work? I guess that's what I'm more interested in.
We have this video that it's our process because we just did a record with the band. I almost make sure that nobody in the band knows what we're going to play before we get to the studio. Because if I give them the songs, then they'll practice. And they'll have all their little solos figured out. Because unlike me, they care about what people think. Particularly Joey. Joey cares. So Joey's calling me a week before the session, what are we going to play? I said, we're going to play tunes, man. You know, you'll be all right, man. Just show up. And when this is not amusing, you do this every time. I said, and the answer is the same. You are not getting the songs. All right? There are 2 songs you know we're going to play because we've been playing them on the tour. So go practice those songs. But he just, that's what we am I good enough? If you're not good enough, we'll find out. So basically, 60% of the record is just songs where we pass them out. Eric brought in one, Joey wrote one on the stage, and it's one of the best songs. Because that's what the concerts are, the performances are, preparation for what it is. These songs are not hard songs. They're not songs that you have to practice. They're not hard, they're simple songs. So the thing that makes it work is your ability to express what the songs are. And everybody in the band is great at that. So I really fight to not put them in situations where they can have enough lead time to not instinctively react to what the meaning of the song is, because when you do that, then now they have time to work out their solos. And that's when everything starts sounding regimented. And traditional jazz records, ones from the 40s and 30s, those guys didn't have any time to rehearse at all. And in modern jazz records, guys are rehearsing 2 weeks before the recording, 6 days before the recording. There's an element of predictability to the recordings that I just don't find. I don't like it. I like the tightrope. And playing this stuff is a tightrope. No matter how well you think you know the music, it can go wrong in a hurry. And that's why I really love it, man. It's incredible.
So could we take the last question from you? Thank you very much.
Sure. Given it sounds as though composing doesn't seem to be your thing at the moment, and I'm not sure about how your golf is, what would you consider to be your development goals and achievements you'd like to achieve over the next 5 to 10 years?
To be honest, I think the great thing about me is I have no idea. I have no earthly idea. It's going to show up. Just like this showed up. It just showed up about 10 years ago. And I didn't expect to be sitting here, I'll tell you that. It just shows up. Something's going to show up. I really believe it. Something will show up. And it's up to me to figure out what it is and how to achieve it and then get to work. So I have a whole lot of stuff on the plate right now. Just learning how to become a better saxophone player is hard enough. When I finished the piece, I was talking to Arnold, and with the Saladino's piece on soprano. I said, yeah, I'm having this trouble with the low end. He says, yeah, it bubbles when you play the bottom. I said, yeah, come see me. It's like, thank you, brother. I'm coming. It's gonna, it's just, there's some music where guys come off the stage and say, yeah, man, we were killing. Yeah. I get off the stage and I'm like, yeah, back to the drawing board. So there's still stuff there. And that's what excites me, is that unlike a lot of my normal friends, I call them people who don't play music, I call them normal. Unlike my normal friends, they're 52 years old, they've been doing their job for the last 25 years, and they know what's coming down the pike, and they're just looking at retirement. Hell, I'm not doing that. I'm learning. I got my learning curve still going this way, so I'm just going to ride that wave until, and then when it ends, I'll stop and I'll start composing, and then it starts all over. So, if the Lord allows me to live here till I'm 80, I got stuff to do, so I'm going to be all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.